Hey everyone, this week we're going to be looking at my top 5 smartphone apps for photographers. So last week's video was a top 5 lenses video. This week we're doing another top 5, but it's going to be about smartphone apps that are beneficial for photographers. So I don't want to ramble too much at the beginning, we've got lots to get through, so let's dive in, we'll have a look at the first one. I really love my Google Pixel 7 Pro, and it's got some great hardware and software for capturing photos, but what I really miss is the ability to control my shutter speed and ISO and things like that. You can't do that with the default camera app, so I'm using ProCam X to unlock some of those features, and you've got things like white balance down here. You can choose one of these settings such as indoors or outdoors, but you can also change the temperature in Kelvin, so that's really good. You can change the focus mode from auto to manual, or you've got settings for landscape and things like that. You can change the ISO, like I said, you can put it on auto, or you can choose your ISO. You can change the shutter speed. So those are all really useful and open up your smartphone to be a bit more like a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Down here in the bottom you've got things like single photo or burst photo mode, so you can take a series of shots really quickly. You've also got exposure bracketing, which is really good. You can take a series of shots at different exposures and blend those together later for increased dynamic range. You've also got a high dynamic range setting up here, which you can turn on and off. You've got flash settings and things like that, and a timer. In here you've also got some options, so you can put the auto level on, so you can see if you've got your camera aligned level with the horizon. You can turn a grid system on or off. And you've got things like emojis and stamps. I'm not really going to use those, but it's useful to have them. Here you've got the option to change to RAW, really good for photographers obviously. You can edit your images later. You can change the quality of JPEGs and things like that. By default, or rather in the free version of the app, you're limited to around about 10 megapixels. If you unlock the Pro version, which is £4.49 here in the UK, then you can get access to those high resolution images. And you've also got other things like a real-time histogram and focus peaking, so that you can see what you're actually focusing on and it will highlight in the camera. So it's a really useful app. Like I said, you don't get this by default with Android. And I should say that this is Android only, but there is a similar app for iOS called Photon, so maybe check that one out if you've got an Apple phone. So next up we've got PhotoPills, and this is a massive app. It's got so many features. I really need to make a video dedicated to just this app. So I'm really going to run through these lightning quick and just give you the headline uses or features of this app. You've got the planner, which is what I use mainly with this app, and if you click on that you can see where the sun is going to be at a given time of day on a different date, and that's really useful if you're doing a sunrise or sunset shot, so that you know the direction that the sun's going to be coming from at sunrise or sunset time. You can also see what time the moon rises and sets and things like that. You've got an exposure calculator, so you can click on that, put in your aperture and your shutter speed and ISO and things like that, and it'll tell you the correct exposure settings. You've got a depth of field calculator, so you can work out the place where you should focus in your scene depending on how far away your subject is and things like that. You have got a depth of field table if you prefer to look it up in a table, hyperfocal table. You've got really great features for astrophotography, so you've got a setting on here. I'm not going to use it now because I need to point this at an outdoor scene, but you can point your camera at the scene that you want to photograph and it will overlay with augmented reality the Milky Way onto that scene, so you will know at a given time that you put into the app where the Milky Way is going to be, and that's really helpful for when you want to plan your astrophotography shots. And then you've got other things like star trails and spot stars, and this will tell you how long your trails are going to be depending on how long your exposure time is and things like that. You've also got things like time-lapse and timer on there. Like I said, there's so much stuff in here, and I want to keep the length of this video down, so I can't go into everything, but just know that it's really comprehensive and you've got loads of stuff in there. You might not need everything, and you can get free versions of some of the features in here. So for example, you could get the Photographer's Ephemeris app, which would cover the planner, and you've got apps that will work out long exposures or depth of field and things like that. But if you want all the features, it's £9.99 to get this. It's a one-off price and I think it's well worth it, so definitely worth checking it out. Okay, so I'm rolling two apps into one for this next one because they're very similar and they're made by the same company. It's Google Maps and Google Earth. So we've probably all used these apps before. They're free, everyone knows about them, but are you using it in all of the ways that you could be using it as a photographer? So this is really great for planning. It's great just for planning where you're going to park and things like that and getting to your location. But then you can also look at Street View and things like that, so you can get an idea of the landscape and what you're actually going to get a shot of. You can change the overlay, so you can have satellite or terrain, and that's really useful to give you an idea of where the mountains are and things like that. Satellite will give you a more accurate view so that you can see where the roads are and trails and things like that for if you're trying to plan a route to your location. And Google Earth is very similar, but it will give you a bit more information about the topography of the landscape. So if I just put in here Yosemite National Park, for example, it'll take us there and we can now zoom in on that and we can actually see the landscape. And that's so useful for photographers because it allows us to work out where the light is going to fall at a certain time of day, where we're going to get shadows, what mountains or hills and things are going to cover other ones up and block our view. So it's a great tool for just planning your scene and composition before you even get there, really. I really recommend using those to their full potential. Next on the list, we've got Clear Outside. This is a fairly simple app, but I use it all the time. It's great for planning weather and things like cloud cover. So we've got all kinds of things like the temperature and low cloud, medium cloud, high cloud. We can see fog, which is great if you're doing woodland photography and you want some foggy scenes and you want to know if there's going to be any mist or fog in the morning. And you can set your current location and you've got saved locations if you want to add those in there. So like I said, it's very simple in what it does, but it's also very useful, and I use this all the time. And this is absolutely free, so if you're not already using it, download it, start using it to help you plan your landscape photography shoots. And so finally, we've got another app that's absolutely massive. We're not going to be able to cover it in this video, but I have got other videos where I'm using it, and it's Lightroom Mobile. So I use this all the time for editing photos. There's a free version which has got quite a lot of features, but if you want to unlock all the features, you are going to have to get a Adobe subscription plan. But in here, I've got an image here of Otis in the park, and you can see this is a raw image, by the way, because I can take raw shots on the Google Pixel 7 Pro, but it will edit JPEGs as well. And you can do all the things that you can do in the standard desktop Lightroom. You can adjust the exposure, you can change contrast, highlights, you can bring shadows up. So that's all really useful. And you can change colour settings such as white balance, you can change the vibrancy, you've got all kinds of things in there. You've got an auto feature which is really useful for quick settings. You've even got things like clarity and texture, just like the desktop version. So this is really powerful, and one of the best things if you've got the Pro version is selective masking. So you can do all of the AI selections such as sky or subject that you can in the desktop version, and you can also do radial gradients, and then that allows you just to bring up the shadows in that area. So massively powerful. You can share from this, you can store your photos in the library, and I use it all the time. Given that it's free and you get most of the features for free, it is really good. If you upgrade to the Pro version, you do get things like the healing brush and selective adjustment tools and geometry tools, and they are really worth it, but you do have to have that Adobe subscription, which isn't cheap. There are free alternatives such as Snapseed, but they're not as good and you don't have as many features. So I definitely recommend at least checking out the free version. It's great just to edit your photos while you're on the go. So they're my top 5 smartphone apps for photographers. They're my picks, the ones that I use most of the time, but you'll have your own favourites, so why not put them down below in the comments and we can all check those out. I hope I've kept this video down to a manageable time. I was trying to keep it around about 10 minutes. So if you've made it through to the end, massive thanks for that. I really do appreciate you watching as always. And if you are new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed and you'd like to do so, you can just click down there on the big red button or over here on this picture of me, and that way you'll stay up to date with everything I'm doing each and every week. There's a new video every Sunday morning at 10 AM UK time. So I hope you'll join me next week for the next one. But until then, thanks a lot everyone, and bye for now.